Welcome, gamers. What's your favorite minority to hate? Mine is women.
I thought you were going to say redheads.
Ah, true. Close second.
Mine is Canadians.
Ooh, I agree. Canadians, they're just too nice.
Yeah.
They make halfway decent food. They're not evil.
No.
You can't.
There's something wrong.
It's very suspicious.
They live in snow 360 days of the year.
And they speak French. Like, what the fuck?
That is the ultimate reason to hate them.
Disgusting.
Frenchmen at least make good food and wine and whatever. Canadians do not add to the world at all.
It's true.
Everyone,
French women, though.
Every once in a while, they make a hot actress, and that's it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in Hollywood who are Canadian.
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds, as an example.
It's disgusting. Moving on from acceptable racism.
Welcome back to the Dime Gaming Bros podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Spencer, joined by Jacob.
Happy hour came early today because it's 8:30 at night on a Sunday, and I was thirsty.
Yeah, so we're drinking now. We will also be drinking later. Just act like nothing ever happened.
Shall I do my review?
Sure. What have you been getting up to?
Baldur's Gate is a game originally released December of 1998 and has since been enhanced and re-released. It is the great granddaddy of role-playing video games, and I dipped my toe into it a little bit this month. I'll be talking about it during our very special after show, Dime Gaming Bros Happy Hour, that we record after every single episode of Dime Gaming Bros. It is a Patreon exclusive show, so please consider heading over to patreon.com/dimecomicbros and subscribe under one of the 4 tiers available there. Shh. It's better this way. I don't have a whole lot to say about the game.
I'm going to have an aneurysm.
I got home from my long tour with my emo rock band 60 Seconds to Uranus. For more context, please listen to our other show, Dime Comic Bros, specifically Season 3, Episode 41. We do that show every week with our friend Colin, and we talk about anything remotely comic related. I got home, and I remembered that I still had April's Humble Bundle monthly bundle to claim. There were a couple of goodies in there this month, but I downloaded Rollerdrome and mostly burned through it in the week I've been home. So, Rollerdrome was released in August of 2022 on Windows, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 5. It was developed by Roll7. That name should sound familiar. I reviewed their latest game, Ollie Ollie World, back in January. All of the self-plugs this review, Spencer bet me $10 that I couldn't, and I did it. The story goes something like this. In the future, there is a new blood sport where competitors are pitted against increasing numbers of enemies in an arena. The competitor has to rollerblade around the arena and kill all of the guys and not die. For visuals, balanced is the word that comes to mind when I think of the visuals. The game is trying to feel futuristic, but in an old school kind of way. Imagine the space aesthetic from the 60s. The colors used in the game are perfect. A high combo counter only gets brighter in colors, and that's helpful because the action is so fast-paced. I really didn't have time to watch the combo counter, but there were a couple of times my brain saw a bright color over there and went, wow, I'm actually doing well. A large part of the game is timing a dodge, especially from sniper shots, so when their red reticle turns white for a split second, it's super helpful to get that perfect dodge. There are super annoying enemies later in the game with a laser weapon that leaves a burning substance in a trail on the ground, and all that is a bright burning blue that really stands out from the landscape. Levels themselves are distinct in colors and layout/design. Sound design, I think I'm going to blame my troubles in this game on the sound design. But first off, the music is great. There's fun synths that help fill the space without being overpowering. Gunfire and explosions sound great. I think what I would like to see improved would be the homing missiles that were always chasing after me. If there was a beeping that beeped faster the closer they get, there would have been a lot less deaths on my end. As what is in the game to indicate that there's homing missiles coming after you are like these red arrows that are under your character model, but that wasn't what I was usually looking at. So, the missiles take a single shot from the pistol, so it would be an easy fix. Tricks and grinds sound great. If you aim down sights after a perfect dodge, you trigger a reflex that slows time down even more than just regular aiming down the sights already does. And the reflex time sounds really slow and cool. Gameplay. A lot of reviews say that this game is basically old school Tony Hawk games with guns akimbo. I think that kind of brings this game down, to be honest. I think summing this game up like that brings this game down. There's so much care put into this game as far as challenges. There's 10 per level. Level design, enemy placement, collectible placement. There's a perfect balance struck between designing the level to play well and having a way to tackle it, but also giving the player freedom to do their own thing and try to beat the level in a single combo or whatever. There are 4 weapons in your arsenal: the dual pistols, the shotgun, the grenade launcher, and a unique blazer weapon that kind of acts like the ballista from Doom. Guns quickly unlock as you play through more levels of the game. Ammo is very limited. To refill your ammo, you have to perform 6 skater tricks and flips. I think that's what pushes the insanity of this game over the edge. It's fun rollerblading around and shooting hordes of enemies. It feels like Doom Guy found a skateboard in hell and said, "Hold my beer." Because ammo is at such a premium, you have to pay so much attention to enemy placement so that you can make space to perform a cool move and try to chain it to attacking the next enemy. This game is not easy, but it was surprising when I was struggling with a late game level and just getting wrecked, and then going back to one of the early levels and completely crushing the challenges. The game does well at teaching you how to improve, seemingly by just throwing more and more enemies at you. There are only 10 levels, but as I already mentioned, there are 10 challenges per level, encouraging hitting the retry button a lot. There are a couple levels that start with a room that you can walk around and interact with a few things. These are for storytelling purposes, and I really didn't find much use for them. I think there are some easy things that can be added for a sequel. I'd like to see different weapons, maybe even like a list of weapons, and you can only bring 4 with you into the arena, so you have to choose well. The game has you play as a certain character that is the underdog in the story, and the story is pretty clear that the people in charge of the in-game game are trying to cheat against you. I wish the story was trimmed and that I could personalize my character. The story really didn't do a whole lot, and I didn't see a need for it. But personalizing my character would be a lot of fun. Just changing the helmet and the outfit, even if it was just colors. I forgot to write up my summary. Like I said, I burned through it in just a couple of sittings this week, and I certainly am not a master at it. I didn't beat the final level because the boss at the end was too hard. But it was a lot of fun. It's a very short and sweet game that I got bundled with 9 other games for like $10. So
Wow.
Well worth the price.
You and just always pulling a Humble Bundle game out of your ass is driving me crazy, because I don't want to do it, even though I know I should do it. I don't even play PC games, so I know I shouldn't. But I should, because it's a good value.
My nose itches.
Humble Bundle shill. Get us a sponsorship.
I've been waiting for you to break the news that they're actually enslaving children and whatever.
They probably are. Who isn't enslaving children at this point?
True. I'm sure there's a coffee company somewhere.
Every company over like $10 million is probably mostly running on child slaves. So,
Speaking of child slaves, we watched the Mario movie.
oh dear Lord. Okay, we're going with that. Yep. So we watched the Super Mario Bros. Movie, which was an animated flick that came out a couple of weeks ago in theaters. As of today, it just passed $1 billion box office worldwide.
True story.
Kill me. It's about Mario going to the world of Mario and then having an adventure to kick Bowser in the butt. The end. I heard someone describe this as kind of like the Lego movie, but without the part where Emmett gets the cap of glue stuck to his back, which explains why he's actually in the story. And I kind of see what they're going for. The weird, he gets sucked into the actual game world of what we're used to is kind of weird. I didn't mind the stuff outside of it set in Brooklyn. I was like kind of vaguely interested in the plumber angle, as boring as that probably sounds. So it's just kind of weird. It's strange. This movie is weird. It's fine. I don't think it knows what it wants to be. I say that a lot about movies.
It's a kid's movie.
It is, and that's kids movie in parentheses derogatory.
Parentheses.
It's fine, but like it's definitely like an actual kids movie.
I say it's one of the better Illumination movies.
For sure. Illumination is a trash fire studio, but like it's definitely in the top 2.
They print money.
They do because children are stupid and their parents are stupider.
Stupider.
On the Illumination front, I am impressed with how few baby fart poopy jokes were in this. There's like one fart joke.
I must say that the movie looks good.
The animation was fantastic.
There's everything in this movie has a texture to it that looks amazing. I want to touch it.
Yeah, it was really high fidelity and with a lot of color variety, which was cool. The settings were all pretty well fleshed out, visually speaking, with the different kingdoms and whatnot. I did have a visual complaint. By the end of the movie, it kind of feels overwhelming in a sense. And I think it's because there's so in the first 15 or 20 minutes of the movie, there seemed to be a pretty strong emphasis on like realistic camera angles. One of the things that most like animated movies, when they're paying attention, they do well. Whereas it's a digital camera set in a fake world, but they're treating it like a real camera, where it's being used in ways that we would be able to physically move a real camera. And I'm sure part of that is the wow, look, the real world is actually boring stuff. But I noticed that it was a pretty consistent thing for a while, and then by the end of it, there's very little motion blur or like the frame being out of focus, and it felt like everything in the frame was being focused on and was the same resolution at the same time. So like by the third act, it's like I don't know what to focus on because the camera lens, whether digital or not, isn't focusing on anything. Like the lens focus wise.
I know what you're talking about. I didn't have this issue at all.
It's like a depth of field type of thing. I'm not sure how else to narrow it down without watching it again and then consulting film nerds who know lenses better than I do. But like it's weird because at first I kind of appreciated what the way the camera was moving. That sounds so weird for like this type of movie, but I was like, this feels like a movie. It's silly and dumb, but like it felt kind of cool. And then by the time he gets to the Mushroom Kingdom and is doing the obstacle course that Peach has him go on, it's like, and then the camera does the wow, look, 3D movie, woo, 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 woo stuff, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with having digital cameras in a digital movie. It's just, I wish they'd followed up on that a little bit more or emphasized it more clearly that was the intent, was like, wow, look, normal world boring, fake world fun. Like, I don't know, something like that. It was just a weird thing. I know it's a really high effort thing to start with and then drop for no real reason.
There was a lot of attention to the audio design. A lot of
references.
In-game sounds were used like they would be in the game.
And the ones that weren't were used in mostly cheeky ways, where like the GameCube intro music was like Luigi's ringtone, which I thought was really cute. I got a real laugh out of that one. But yeah, a lot of the sounds were pretty solid. There was an audio motif that was driving me fucking nuts, and that was how many times he said "Let's go," and it was that and the stupid slow motion "Mamma Mia." Like, holy shit! Please stop.
The voice actors did a great job, pretty much all the way around.
It was fine. I will maintain that Jack Black as Bowser was fantastic, and I wasn't expecting it to be so good. But Charlie Day as Luigi was actually pretty fucking solid. I didn't think it was Charlie Day at first because he has like a mostly because of his character from It's Always Sunny.
Oh,
Is that Community?
I don't
I'm
know this
stupid.
guy. The guy playing Toad was good. There was another guy that I was surprised by. Who was it? Oh, Donkey Kong. Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong was like surprisingly great. I usually don't like Seth Rogen, but he did very well as Donkey Kong.
Yeah, I think, despite my undying love for Anya Taylor-Joy, she was fine.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping for more.
My direct comparison,
okay.
With that is Florence Pugh in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was absolutely insane as Goldilocks, like unrecognizably well cast, and blah blah blah. Comparing things is lame, but like when you have Jack Black, like borderline unrecognizable, except the fact that he's doing a bit that he would do in real life, like the voice is very different. She's just kind of there. I will put her on the same tier as Chris Pratt in terms of they're collecting a paycheck.
I kind of wonder how much of it is how her character was written, though, because her character was kind of just there.
Pretty flat. I don't know. There's an argument to be made that having like the really heavily accented fake Mario voice for the entire movie would have gotten annoying, and I get that, and I don't disagree, but I do think that just making it Chris Pratt was really shitty because when they do the stupid little like commercial and they're doing the voice, that was fine. You know, they're actually like playing up how they sound in the games. That was fine. But it's like you could have, when you're comparing him and Charlie Day in a room of like their family it sound like either much better actors or actual Italian people. The contrast is really strong. It's like, wow, look, it's the guy playing the character in the movie. And that was distracting. Less just because it sounds like Chris Pratt, but more like it's really out of place, especially with the I don't know how old they are. This is the only thing that only bothers me in like a lot of animated movies, but like they're at their family home, which with Italians, that's a long-standing, most of the time, multiple generations live in the same house. I think that's a good thing. But then he goes off to his room to play video games. And just because of the way the character model looks, they're coming across like they just got out of college. And they're like starting their first business, but also Chris Pratt and Charlie Day are like in their 40s, and I can't. It's a brain thing of mine. It feels weird because they're like, I'm gonna come into my brother's room and I'm gonna bring him some food, and it's like, are you 10? I don't know. It just felt kind of weird.
No Candy Kong, 0 out of 10.
No Mario Tennis or golf, also 0 out of 10.
No Kerbo. I liked that they brought back the Donkey Kong rap. That made me happy.
I just appreciated that they made they emphasized the Kongs, the monkey, the Jungle Kingdom, like using the carts because of Diddy Kong Racing was the inference from that I got from that, because that's a bad game, but like it's a weird subset of the Donkey Kong game series. I wish they used Diddy Kong more. He's my favorite annoying piece of shit. He's like Scrappy Doo. I love to hate him.
Ugh.
I think my biggest non-really complaint, just general thing, that's exactly why I would not really like this movie that much, is it's just there.
Yeah.
It's not really about much.
It's just entertaining for kids.
Yeah.
It doesn't do anything.
Which is weird because it does have a fair amount of deep cuts in terms of like Nintendo lore, just with like the sound effects and whatnot. There's a few like punch out bar, and it's like that the 6-year-olds don't get that.
I saw that, yeah.
And that's what makes it kind of weird. Because
I also saw that the Surfer Bro Kong was in a picture on the wall, and I was like, I want him though.
It's just kind of weird because I would think there's some little threads of like being brave is cool and stuff. The usual stuff you'd expect from a kid's movie, where it's like, maybe don't be a coward and like it's okay to fuck up. Like, and that's fine.
Dad problems.
And yeah, and that's why it's
girl
like
problems.
There's enough there where I'm
bully problems.
There's enough there, whereas you could have, not to compare them exactly, but like the Lego movie was about a lot. And it's actually really good, and it's very thorough, despite it being goofy as all hell. Like,
is that Illumination too?
No, that was some Warner Bros. Animation thing. No, that had nothing to do with Illumination. Fuck no. I don't know what crack you're smoking.
I don't know.
But like, you can have something like that. That is like uniquely, literally, you could bring a 4-year-old to this, but also there's still a solid chunk of depth to it, and this is like. they had the material to do more with it, not to change the tone or to make it less silly or less kid friendly, but like they could have put in some more fucking effort on the writing front. The animators all went nutty,
Yeah.
so I'll give them that.
It kind of bothered me that the opening scene of the movie is what the commercial was.
I don't really care. I've seen a lot of things do that. I don't really mind it. I'd rather, if they're going to just pick a scene to use as an advertisement, I'd rather it be the beginning than the end.
True.
I don't like it when they release full clips. And that was, at least it was chopped up a bit.
A little.
Enough. And it's also the opening clip, so, the stupid little star from Galaxy was great. He was very funny. Literally me. He's me for real, no cap.
That is adult humor in a kid's movie if I've ever seen it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Who decided that the little blue star from Super Mario Galaxy was suicidal? I need to meet this person.
I think they might be dead already. Either by Nintendo's hand, because Japan doesn't like, acknowledging that people kill themselves. Cough, cough. They put nets outside of office buildings to catch jumpers. I didn't say that. Yeah. The needle drops were kind of egregious. Every kids movie does that, and that it goes hand in hand with having a lot of celebrity voice casting, and it's egregious needle drops. And whilst I appreciate any use of "I Need a Hero" because it's my favorite song in the world because of Shrek,
they used the original.
They did use the original, which was very ballsy of them, and they also used "Take on Me," which is a great song. But also, please, why? Those are songs from the '80s.
"Take on Me" did not seem to fit in the scene.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I think that's very silly, where it's like the kids will know them because they're popular, but also like those aren't even from like the ages of like the parents in the crowd. That's older than most of the parents for the crowd of this movie. That's like my parents' age. So that was weird. The sound, the score musically otherwise was okay. Nothing substantial, but it was all right.
They took original game music
a little bit
and did a nice twist on it most of the time. It was like, oh, I know this tune, but it's like
in a different
heavily bwad up, and I like it.
Yeah, it was enough. I don't think I'm about to go pull up the soundtrack on Spotify, but it had enough effort into it. Jack Black doing a little song was painfully cringe.
Yep.
But pretty funny.
Okay. He did it twice, and that's what made me cringe. Like, once is fine, I guess, but twice, really? That's you doubling down on the bit, and that's not acceptable.
It's stuck in my head now, though, so I'll give it that. It's catchy. But yeah, I do need it to be nominated for an award, so he goes to the award show in like a footy onesie and then does the song, because that would be great. On the whole, I put this near Sonic level. I think it's quality-wise a bit above Sonic. It has some effort put in by some people.
It's definitely above it in quality,
but it's not as
it looks good.
Yeah, but it's not the most it was fun. I wasn't cringing, but I wasn't like enjoying myself. I got a few chuckles.
You were yawning quite a bit.
I'm also tired, but yeah. There were some chuckles.
I expected to shit talk through it a lot more than I did.
Yeah. The animation definitely had some moments where I was like, wow, that's surprisingly impressive, especially for Illumination. Their movies are pretty fucking ugly. So I'm not sure what was going on. I think Nintendo really pushed them to make it look good. They're like, if you despicable me these designs, we will kill your families. So it's like...
Sounds like Nintendo.
Yeah, literally. We will sue you into the ground for existing. You hummed the Mario music at your wedding? Jail. It was all right. So like, it's coherent, it functions, it's vaguely enjoyable.
It didn't cause pain.
It didn't cause pain.
That means something for a video game movie.
It's like a 3 out of 5.
Yeah. I was thinking 3.5, 4.
That's a bit high. But
probably
okay.
3.5.
I don't know. The easy comparison in my brain is because Black Adam and Sonic 2 both get around a 2.5 out of 5. I kind of enjoy them half ironically. They're very fun to shitpost about while watching. This is like, I can just watch this and I don't feel the need to talk mad shit, but also I'm not like having a great time. I didn't feel like I wasted my time. Meh.
Okay.
You know what else is pretty meh? The first bit of news.
Whoa.
I'm very funny like that. From IGN.com, Warner Bros. Games has announced a standalone Quidditch experience called Harry Potter Quidditch Champions, and playtest signups are now open. According to the game's FAQ page, Quidditch Champions will allow players to partake in the Wizarding World's iconic sport and other broomstick adventures alongside friends in a competitive multiplayer setting. Playing the game requires constant internet connection, hence Warner Bros. Games is holding a limited playtest for people to try out the new Harry Potter title. During the playtest, you can either play the game by yourself or you can team up with friends and other people online. You'll also be able to create and customize your character to your liking.
Broomstick games.
Does it have gender options? Quidditch Champions has been in development for several years at Unbroken Studios, which is also lending a hand in developing Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League.
Until that gets canned.
Warner Bros. Games released the following statement about Quidditch Champions' connection to the Harry Potter franchise alongside Portkey Games, which is publishing the game. While Portkey Games are not direct adaptations of the books or films, the games are firmly rooted in the magical universe of the Wizarding World. While remaining true to J.K. Rowling's original vision, Portkey game developers chart new territory by creating fresh ways for fans to immerse themselves in the Wizarding Worlds. Cop out, cop out, cop out, cop out. The announcement of Quidditch Champions comes on the heels of the release of Hogwarts Legacy for PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC, which sold over 12 million copies 2 weeks after its launch in February, despite controversy surrounding the Harry Potter author. The game will release on PS4 and Xbox One on May 5th, while the Nintendo Switch version comes out on July 25th. I actually have thoughts about this, and that's why I included it.
Wow, I can't imagine you having thoughts on this.
I know, right? I never have thoughts. One, it's a last-gen exclusive game. So fat L. This thing has been stuck in development hell for 10 years. Two, it's a multiplayer-only game. So fat L, are you charging me $15? Otherwise, I'm not going to buy it. And two, it's a sport game. Who the fuck is this for? And also, yes, literally, who is this for? Like, I know, obviously, Hogwarts Legacy sold really well despite a lot of things, let's say. But, like, I think this might have been in development before that thing, and this has just been kind of stuck. Judging by the screenshots, it looks very, like, cartoony and very simple. So, like, it reminds me of how the Gollum game looks, honestly. Oof. Not in a negative sense, just, like, kind of like the art style. So this might have been some like covert project for like a butt ton of time. They're like, fuck, we have to release it now. Like we can't just shelve it this far along. And then they're trying to minimize any damage to the brand in the meantime. This thing is going to bomb.
Maybe they're aiming for like Rocket League's spot of the market, but I don't see how that's going to stick the landing.
Especially not with it not on PC and it's not on current tech and the Switch launch is late. That's weird. It just... I'm not buying this. For obvious reasons, but it's so weird. Like, why? WB, please stop. It's so fucking weird, man. Who asked for this? Quidditch isn't even a coherent sport. Like, in the books, it makes sense, but it's not like I wouldn't play it. It's mostly used for dramatic tension.
Grab the golden egg thing and you win.
Exactly.
Wow.
Win button. It's weird. It's very funny.
I don't know. From Variety.com, PlayStation has struck a deal to acquire game developer Firewalk Studios from Probably Monsters, Inc. Probably Monsters is one word. Incorporated. Sony Interactive Entertainment announced Thursday. Firewalk, which is currently developing an untitled AAA multiplayer game for PlayStation 5 and PC, will collaborate along PlayStation brands, including Bungie and Haven Interactive Studios, to create constantly updated live service games for PlayStation consumers. Firewalk marks the 20th studio to join PlayStation Studios. The Bellevue, Washington-based company's day-to-day operations for its 150-person team will continue to be run by Firewalk's management in collaboration with PlayStation Studios' external development team.
Another stone in the Infinity Gauntlet, etc., etc. At least it's an even 20 now. It kind of shows a lot of confidence on whatever game they're working on that they're getting bought out before the game's even out.
Yeah.
Their first game.
And it's a multiplayer-only game? Is that what it said?
Untitled AAA multiplayer game.
Weird.
They are getting added to the live service studio team, so I feel sorry for them. But on the other hand, at least they're apparently being told that they're going to be working independently. So we'll see how much that actually holds up.
Yeah, for now.
You know, from Polygon.com, A third mainline game in the Horizon series appears to be in the works at Guerrilla Games. The developer of Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West said in an announcement Monday that Guerrilla's bright future includes expanding the world of Horizon and Aloy's next adventure and our exciting online project. Hints of a third game come just a few days after Guerrilla released the Burning Shores expansion for Horizon Forbidden West, and likely won't be a surprise for players who have completed that add-on. As video games and their major story DLC tend to do, Burning Shores offers clues about where Aloy might be heading after her journey to the West Coast. Guerrilla's tease about what's next for Aloy was tucked under the announcement of a leadership change at the Dutch studio. Studio director and executive producer Angie Smets is moving to a role at PlayStation Studios as head of development strategy. Guerrilla's management team now consists of Joel Eschler, studio director and production director, Hella Schmidt, studio director and general manager, and Jan Bart van Beek, studio director and art director. So that's actually a promotion. That's not like a bad thing.
Yeah.
Hopefully for the game, but that's a good thing for her to get promoted like that. So that's cool. That's like going from I am Mr. Halo to I am Mr. Xbox. So that's neat. No surprise here.
A question I had for you, way back on the Mario movie, was where do you think the sequel will go? Because I have an idea. It's an easy one. I think they're going to do Paper Mario next.
Ooh. They would never, but I want them to, because it would require them to also put it at high effort animation to 2D. They would never. It's probably going to be a fucking Luigi's Mansion spinoff and a Donkey Kong spinoff, and then they'll make a Smash Bros. Movie.
Just completely marvel it.
Yeah. That's what everyone fucking does, and it never works, but they keep doing it.
Well.
So yeah.
I want Paper Mario.
I want Paper Mario games to be good. The last, 2 have been shit.
Yep.
I think it's no surprise that Horizon is getting continued. It's very popular. It gets at least a decent amount of critical acclaim, despite it having some Ubisoft-isms, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a pretty good game, but apparently both of them are. The DLC sounds like it's good, so it makes sense that there's another game. There's the offhanded mention of an online thing. I cut it out because I didn't really feel like going over it, but they're also developing some online thing, but no one knows what it is. So it's separate from the next game. So
wiggity whack.
It's going to be a launcher.
From PCGamer.com, longtime Bungie writer and former Halo Infinite creative lead Joseph Staten left Microsoft earlier this month, and now we know where he's going. To Netflix. In my work life, there's nothing I love more than collaborating with others to build worlds filled with iconic characters, deep mysteries, and endless adventures, he tweeted. So today, I'm thrilled to announce that I've joined Netflix Games as creative director for a brand new AAA multi-platform game and original IP. Staten has a long and varied history on the Halo series, ranging from voice work in Halo 2 to writing director on Reach, and as mentioned earlier, head of creative on Halo Infinite. But he has far more than just that under his belt. He was also story director on the original Destiny, and after leaving Bungie in 2013, he went to Microsoft, where he served as creative director on a remarkable array of games, including Sunset Overdrive, Quantum Break, Crackdown 3, and Microsoft Flight Simulator, among others. When Netflix moved into game development in 2021, its focus was primarily on mobile gaming development, but in November of 2022, it said it wanted to create a AAA PC game, which had all the looks of being a live service shooter. It's fair to say that Staten knows a thing or two about heading up projects of just that sort.
So I was a little disappointed at first because the original announcement was that, one, he had left 343, and then a couple of weeks after that, he got promoted to somewhere else in Microsoft, and then 2 weeks later it said, I'm leaving Microsoft. And now it's saying that he's at Netflix, which hopefully stays. It sounds like a decent setup. At least he's being given what sounds like a lot of kind of free range to do what he wants. So
but also trusting Netflix to make a live service shooter. Yikes.
Oof, we'll fucking see. They just killed their DVD service a couple weeks ago, so
they hired the Bungie guy.
They did hire the Bungie guy.
Or the Destiny guy. That's what I meant. They hired the Destiny guy to do an online shooter.
We'll see how that turns out.
Wow.
I am rooting for him. I like Joe Staten. He's my dad.
Isn't it Jason Staten?
No. That's Jason Statham.
Your turn.
From Polygon.com, an independent game studio made a big splash this week with footage of its project Unrecord, a first-person shooter in which players take on the role of a police detective. What sets Unrecord apart from its FPS contemporaries is its presentation. Players witness the action through the slightly warped lens of a police body camera. Unrecord looks unsettlingly real due to its Unreal 5 engine-powered photorealistic graphics, but there's more to the game's presentation than just convincing lighting and believably derelict game levels. The fisheye lens distortion and herky-jerky movement as the player chases down and shoots at suspects looks nearly indistinct from real-life body cam footage that we've been inundated with as police departments release similar footage to the public, often for incredibly distressing reasons. In fact, some viewers have questioned whether the gameplay footage of Unrecord is gameplay footage at all. The studio behind it, known as Drama, with a capital D, says it is. We do not use any real videos or external rendering, it promised, in an FAQ released on Thursday. There have been many doubts raised about the authenticity of the gameplay, the studio said. The game is developed on Unreal Engine 5, and the game footage is captured from an executable and played using a keyboard and mouse. It is not a VR game. In reality, it seems rather flattering to compare the graphics of Unrecord to reality, but fortunately, we know that a game first touches on gameplay and what on earth? I'm retarded. I think they're finished, so I'm going to just chalk that up to a bad translation.
First focuses on gameplay and universe. Oh, now I see.
Yeah.
Well, you kept saying touches instead of focuses.
Yeah. The game is developed on Unreal Engine 5, and the game footage is captured from an executable and played using a keyboard and mouse. It is not a VR game.
Executable.
I'm retarded. Considering the high production costs of a video game and our global reputation at stake, if Unrecord were a scam, it would be a blockbuster scam. I have a lot of feelings on this one, but I'm going to let you take point so I can work off of what you say.
Game looked good.
I agree.
You sent a video earlier this week where it's like, a guy saying making a police body cam shooter game is kind of like the dumbest idea of all ideas. And then the studio came out with a statement that was like, only made it worse. And the guy thinks that it was kind of innocent. It seems like the studio is just trying to make a game that looks really, really good. And they did that. And they didn't realize all the political horse shit that they were stepping in. And then when they tried to unstep out of it, they stepped into it up to their knees. So, wow. Politics go brrr.
I kind of agree. I did send it to you for a reason. I think just on a technical level, it does look fucking insane how good it looks with the amount of effort put into the small detail work and it being... it seems like a lot of focus is being put on that. A lot of it is RNG in terms of like how the animations function. So that's why it doesn't look like a game. Like there's set skeleton of how you do stuff, but there's a lot of random number generators on like the specifics of how certain things work. Like
the article doesn't mention that later to prove that it isn't real footage, the studio released another video showing like in engine what the game world looks like and kind of took a free camera and moved around and it was like, oh wow, it really doesn't look that good actually. But it's just like the fisheye effect and some other things.
I definitely agree. I think it's some European country. It definitely comes across like a bunch of tech nerds wanted to make a thing, and it's kind of a paradox of like you couldn't do it with anything else, but it also causes the issue of like using a body cam because the only people who wear body cams are cops. So on the one hand, the presentation would only work in the one scenario, but on the other hand, playing a game as a cop primarily about shooting people is kind of... so it's a really weird thing. It's really trippy to watch. It was
brought to my attention that it doesn't look like body cam footage because it needs more arms in the way of the camera. The running animation is too smooth, and that's kind of funny in my special brain. But also, the way that faces are blurred is kind of weird. It looks like it's more than just like to protect the innocent or whatever. Like it has a weird sci-fi feel to it, I think.
I think it's primarily because they don't know how to render faces.
Yeah, they don't want to render faces, which is fine. But it just doesn't look like the typical TV censorship blur. But really, the only way to tell that it's a video game is because of some on-screen UI things. Like the person checks how many bullets they have left in the magazine, and it displays a number, 5 out of 15 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then like a dialogue option.
I think,
as far as the game goes, there's a weird shot where a drone comes screaming in and smacks off a pillar, and that's kind of weird too. I really hope that the studio can bring this up to be like a cyberpunk thing, or make it in the future and make it unrelated to current day hot topics, and they'll be fine. Make it like a Blade Runner game, and that would be fun.
I mean, Blade Runners are cops who go kill innocent people, right? Like that's not you're not helping the point.
It's weird sci-fi cop, anti-cop stuff, and wow, you're out of the shit. It's easy.
I think it's because they don't want to make an actual story. I think they just want to do like
that's bullshit. Because of the final interaction with the character, where is Alex or whatever it is.
I think it's gonna be really bare bones. I have no clue how long it's going to be. I have a feeling this is not going to be like a $60 sell. And the fact that it's not a VR game is encouraging, because most VR games end up being trash. They're cool, but they don't work. I think this is going to make an interesting double feature with that VR first-person horror game we were talking about a while back that looked like borderline photorealistic, the one that's releasing in like episodes. It was the video with the dog that ran off, and then there was the weird demon one. I think those two will make a crazy doubleheader. I think they're both in Unreal 5 as well. So Unreal 5 is really showing off lately.
Yeah.
So that's cool. The tech is going crazy, man.
From Kotaku.com, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I thought this wasn't a political podcast. Has been a horrific tragedy for tens of millions of people, but as we've seen, life still goes on between the bombings. And that includes making and releasing new video games. The experiences of the team at Frogwares, a studio best known for their Sherlock Holmes games, have been one of many ways international readers have been able to learn about the war and its effects on Ukraine's people. Over the past year, we've seen members of the team join the armed forces, seen that others have been able to relocate to safer locations, and that through it all, Frogwares have somehow been able to keep developing the games for that fans around the world know them for. They were able to release one in March of 2022, an incredible achievement, but that was also a game that had mostly been developed prior to the invasion. Last week, they released a second, called Sherlock Holmes: The Awakened, a modern remake of a game they first released in 2008. It seems to be reviewing okay, no doubt helped by the fact that the original was a pretty good adventure game to begin with. Aside from the graphical upgrades, though, the 2023 version has one other difference with the original. It includes a splash screen at the beginning of the game, providing some important context for The Awakened's development and release. On February 24th, 2022, our home, Ukraine, was brutally invaded and thrown into all-out war. In April 2022, we began development of Sherlock Holmes: The Awakened. This game is dedicated to all the fighters, volunteers, supporters, and every single citizen who stood their ground and kept our country standing. It is our own act of resilience against the chaos and horror the enemy tried to impose on our livelihood. Slava Ukraini. The Awakened is out now on pretty much everything. PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch.
I just stumbled across this right before we started recording, and it looks really freaking cool. I had no idea that like this company continuously made like Sherlock Holmes games. I haven't seen any of them. But as a remaster of a like 14-year-old game, it looks really good.
It does look really, really good.
The gameplay itself still looks very 2008 in its like frame, if that makes any sense. But the cutscenes are done in Unreal 5, and that's insane. Because that stuff looks like basically late last gen, I'd say. It looks really visually good. I'm interested now in checking this out. I'll do some Wikipedia surfing and see what's up. Because I play a lot of other Sherlock Holmes games because I'm a sucker for like mediocre mystery games. It's like my thing. So hopefully these are better because I like new stuff.
$40 on Switch. Rated M for blood, violence, and drug reference.
Ooh, drugs. This is the game where Sherlock does heroin.
Yes, finally.
I've been known to do some gaming in my spare time.
Most of it last minute.
Always last minute. But I always do a lot of it. I played Control, which was the most recent Remedy Entertainment game, and it was published by 505. It released in 2019 for PS4, Windows, Xbox One, and then it was re-released for PS5 and Xbox Series consoles in February 2021. There were also cloud versions for the Switch, Amazon Luna, and the Stadia. And there were a couple of expansions released as well. So this follows the Federal Bureau of Control, the FBC, a secret U.S. government agency tasked with containing and studying a phenomenon that violates the laws of reality. You play as Jesse Faden, played by Courtney Hope, who is a Remedy Entertainment veteran at this point. They really like getting scans of her body for these games. That's all I'm saying. Same.
I was going to say, can you blame him?
No.
Okay.
You play as Jesse Faden, the Bureau's new director who explores the oldest house, the FBC's paranormal headquarters, and you do gameplay things. The rest of it is just reading too much Wikipedia article.
And then game and stuff.
And then the game happens.
There's game in this game.
To be fair, a lot of my games don't include game.
True. Very true.
So, yeah, this is, I would say, a spiritual successor or sequel to Quantum Break. There are a lot of very similar gameplay elements and evolutions, as well as a lot of conceptual ideas and themes or adjacent things. So Quantum Break was about time. This game is about reality. Holy shit. And like every Remedy Entertainment game, it has a whole butt ton of Alan Wake references, because of course it does. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the cast members in common, because it's a fairly small studio. So yeah, the story bits. There's a lot. And also there's nothing. My brain hurts. So yeah, you walk into this building and you're like, I am here. Why am I here? And then you do a lot of stuff, and then you're like, holy shit, we're in a game now. Things happen. Action happens. You're like, whoa. It's hard to describe this game without just describing every single frame.
Doesn't she walk in for like a job interview and then suddenly becomes the new director? Or am I remembering it wrong?
Yes and no. No, not actually, but that's what Ashti, the janitor, says. Because it turns out that the janitor is kind of the actual head of the place. It's weird. Okay, yeah, this game hurts my head mostly in a good way. Yeah, basically the story is you play as Jessie, who has been on a lifelong search for her brother, who during a paranormal supernatural incident when they were children was taken by the spooky feds, basically. And she has spent her entire life trying to find the spooky feds to find her brother.
Fox Mulder?
Yeah.
Ooh, Dana Scully can kidnap me.
Oh my gosh.
Or the Fringe Division. Anna Torv can kidnap me too.
Jeez, dude.
I like my weird TV shows.
I know. So do I.
Get stranded on an island and it's actually purgatory?
Shh, don't remind me about Lost. Shut up. Yeah, so that's a bunch of, there's further spooky, weird backstory that's mostly explained through in-game dialogue and a lot of obscure references to stuff. The game starts in media res, my least and favorite thing in the world, where the game goes, shit's happening, fucking deal with it, we'll explain later, and then kind of doesn't explain later.
It kind of does.
Kind of does and it kind of doesn't. The story primarily is about you becoming the new director, fighting the Hiss, which is an invading force taking over the FBC, killing, people, and taking control of them and making enemies for you to fight. Because they're trying to take control of the building and the stuff in the building. And then it also turns out that there's like an ancient primordial ooze in the basement that's been there since before the building was there. That's a whole thing.
Does it create turtles?
No
that are
turtles.
ninjas?
I wish there were turtles. If this turned into a Ninja Turtles game, I would lose my shit.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be so weird. Turns out she's April O'Neil. Fuck you. That'd be crazy. That's kind of the gist of the story. There's a lot of specific details. You go through the building, learning things about the organization, the building itself. The oldest house is, I think the real protagonist of this game is the FBC. It's the most interesting stuff and the most, I would say, plot driver and interesting story elements are about the setting and the organization and not Jessie. And I think that kind of pulls interest away from her story because during certain parts of the story, her choices are not my choices. She has different motivations than I do when playing the game, and sometimes they come into very clear conflict where some character is like, I'm going to explain this thing, and she's like, shut the fuck up, I don't care, where's my brother? And I'm like, you dumb bitch. Why would you do that to me? I'm not sure how it ended up happening in terms of like a developmental level, because this was kind of Remedy's magnum opus. Every new game is your new magnum opus, but like this was a really big deal for them to be free of Microsoft's influence for Quantum Break while carrying over a lot of really cool ideas that they had and upgrading them and doing them a lot better. But there's some choices they made where I think they overthought it, and that's rare coming from me. I know. An easy example would be Jessie's character design. She just is wearing like normal street clothes with like a cool leather jacket, and she has bright red hair. Her thematic importance to this world, the law and order created within the oldest house, she is the chaotic element coming in to fuck shit up. And if she didn't have red hair, she would kind of just look like she works there. And I think that the idea that they had, I saw in some interview, was that they wanted her to look like she has been trying to blend in her whole life and like get information and like kind of, do odd jobs and then scoot. So she's trying to be on the DL. But that doesn't really make for an interesting character model. It falls into the same problem that Quantum Break did, where Jack Joyce visually is not really that distinct. It's a high-quality character model, and they look cool, but not cool enough. Whereas Jack Joyce was supposed to be this guy who randomly fucking walked into this mess and then just had to learn how to have god powers. She's kind of in a similar situation, but she's been chasing it, and then she doesn't have the reactions to new information you would expect. And I think the most distracting part of the story for me is her personal motivations don't track with the plot, if that makes sense. It's kind of hard to not get into specifics because it'll take 18 hours to explain. But like, there's a lot of specific choices she makes that are really, they don't go in the interesting direction, and I think it contradicts some of her later character motivations because she does change over the course of the game, and I like the direction they take her in, where there's a couple of offhanded lines about her being like, I don't know what's going on, but like I kind of feel comfortable here. I actually like this. I'm happy to be here, even though I don't even know what I'm doing. And there's some really interesting things to ponder about that. But it kind of gets contradicted when in two scenes she's telling people that she just needs to get her brother so she can leave. It's really weird. Lore-wise. Oh my god. It's so hot. It's so hot. There's so much shit. This game goes fucking nutty, man. Like, absolutely bonkers. Badonka-donking crazy.
She doesn't show her badonkadonks.
I wish she did. I'm going to cut this out. The way I was mentally making a placeholder while I was trying to get accustomed to the game, because it took so fucking long to get used to, is I was thinking about, you remember that it's the airport that the Department of Truth keeps their shit in, that they're like, not enough people think it's real, but some people think it's real, so it kind of shifts itself around.
With the lizard people in the basement, right?
Yeah, it's the one where it's like, it's not real, and we don't think it's real, but we will use it. But if anyone walks in, they're just going to see an abandoned airport.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of as a mental placeholder for this, because it just made sense.
Weird.
Yeah, so basically, the Federal Bureau of Control is the spooky FBI. They find all the weird reality-breaking things, the supernatural, weird, spooky stuff, and then they're like, we're going to shove it in the biggest box in the dungeon because we want to study it and get science and control.
There's mushrooms and ooze.
There is also mushrooms and ooze in the basement. That's a whole thing. So they exist in this really, really cool base called the Oldest House. It's such a weird name, but it's like this inverted triangle pyramid building that exists in plain sight, but only if you want to see it. So it can exist. It's like the Men in Black headquarters, whereas no one suspects it's really there, but if you know what you're looking for, you know the address, you can find it. And then you go in and you're like, this looks like a normal office building, and it is a normal office building, but it's about things that are not a normal office building. So you start out the game going through like metal detectors and seeing regular security memos, don't let this person in the building, make sure you're double checking purses, like normal, the feds. And then the big linchpin for this game where it makes a really strong first impression, like the 10-minute rule for like video games, 10, 15 minutes, where it's like, if it doesn't hook you by the end of that, put it down. It's a small thing, but I noticed it because I was actually trying to pay attention for once in my life. When you go in, it's a normal building. You're like, this is weird. I don't know why I'm here, et cetera, et cetera. You're just following the game prompts. And the metaphor that the game starts with is really heavy-handed, but it's great. And it's about like you as a person. You're focusing on a poster in a room. And behind the poster is a portal. And no one knows the portal is there because they're always looking at the poster. And it's like an analogy for like the building and also the Federal Bureau of Control, because people know it exists, but they don't really know what it does. So like you go into the portal and then you meet the janitor and he's like, oh yeah, you're here for the job interview, whatever, go down the hall to the left. He's weird. He's Finnish, where Remedy is from. So they're having a lot of fun with that. And then there's the last line of dialogue he says to you in the opening. He's reading your fucking mind. He responds to the thing you thought to yourself out loud. And it's hard to catch unless you're paying attention. Because the player, Jesse's like, he's weird, third shifters are strange overnight folk, but he has a nice face. And then he responds out loud, it's better to have a nice face than no face at all. Which is very sussy shit for later. And then when you go down, you go through the elevator, the building repeats itself. Mm-hmm. And then you go down the same corridor that you just came from, except it's a little different, and there's an elevator. And you can't go backwards. If you try to backtrack, it goes to a dead end. And it's so weird. You can just go through that without even noticing. But if you're paying attention, it's fucking crazy shit. And sadly, the rest of the game doesn't do that quite as much. It's the sort of. The idea is that the building shifts. It's explained later, but like the building shifts through reality and space. There are certain parts of the building that are safe rooms, so you can not die. And there are like control points, like the skeleton of the building, kind of. They'll be scattered around. So no matter where the building shifts to in reality, there will always be some things you can go back to, which I'm sure makes the 9-to-5 day really shitty. But it's a really cool introduction to the idea of shifting, whereas you don't see it visually happen, but it gives you an idea of what you're in for. And the game doesn't really do that ever again, but
went through the infinite room, didn't you?
Outside of specific spaces.
Oh.
It doesn't just change the game map on you, because that would be a technological nightmare. It doesn't. Okay. It doesn't. It's tricking you into thinking it does, but it doesn't. There are a couple of kind of infinite spaces in massive quotations, but like whatever. So it's just about you discovering what the hell's happening here. What's this weird invading force, finding people who work here, asking them lots of questions, finding out why are you the director now? What is this weird weapon you have that you found in the old director's office? What's this gun? Why is the old director talking to me inside my head? Blah, 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 blah. Lots of spooky mystery stuff. And it's all done really well through notes, letters, audio logs, in-game video files, etc., etc. The thing that Remedy does pretty much better than anybody else. I believe when I explained Quantum Break, I said that the story on paper, when you lay it all out on a technical level, is really cool and really high effort, and it makes a lot of sense. But the way it's presented makes it kind of hard to follow. I want to say the Control has the same problem, but it doesn't. It's hard to describe because the game throws you through for such a loop, and it took my brain so long to like figure out what the hell was going on and stuff. And not everything ever ends up making sense. There's some things that just will not make sense. There is not an answer. They just refuse to give you one. But the game really encourages you to go find the notes and the audio logs, whereas Quantum Break, they were there as flavor text. Like you would go interact with the note on the wall, and then it would come up on screen and you could read it. No one reads those. That type of flavor text doesn't encourage you to read it. It just comes up, especially when you can see in engine, you can see the note on the wall. Like it has enough resolution to look at it. Whereas Control, the way that the locations of the different pieces of paper and notes and stuff, and the intrusions from the old director specifically encourage you to go through your notes about specific things. So say you'll get a flash of the old director, you'll only hear some key phrases and words, and you're like, what the fuck was that? It tells you, go into your notes, go watch the whole video, because you can find it. It does that a lot for everything, and it really encourages you to go actually do exploring, not for the sake of completion, but because you want answers. And I think it makes it more... I just think the individual notes are done better. Might be a better way of putting it. Because it gives you some answers and then it refuses to give you other ones, but it doesn't just give you random bullshit. Quantum Break has a lot of cool stuff that I think is neat, but there is a lot of just like, it is a paper that shows you a formula, and you're like, what the fuck is this?
Right.
And there isn't really an answer that makes it, that it's relevant to you. It's just, it is flavor text. It's cool, but it doesn't help the story build up that much. And I think Control does that a lot better. I think that just the general number is lower. I don't know that for sure. I am about 80% of the way through the story. I did a big binge last night to get through a lot. And I still have kind of this pit in my gut that the finale is not going to pay off as much as I want it to. I don't know how else to explain that. So, yeah. Gameplay. It's a Remedy game. They all have a very similar feel to them in a good way. It's a third-person, over-the-shoulder shooter action-adventure game. A good direct comparison for this, in terms of its exploration and kind of its leveling system, is it kind of feels like Fallen Order, which released the same year, and there's even some animations that look extremely similar, like opening up boxes. Like, it's almost the same. The noise is similar. There's a closeness there, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a weird similarity I noticed in my brain. Yeah, so the gunplay that's introduced is you're given this service weapon, all caps, and it's a gun, it's like a handgun, but then later you can get upgrades, and then it's not a handgun, it's like a shotgun, and then it's like a machine gun, and then it's like a sniper rifle. And it's really fucking cool. I really like this gun. The problem that Quantum Break had, it really is hard not to compare the two, is that they were very boring stereotypes of guns. They all functioned great, and I enjoyed the gunplay, but there was no specifics to them, really. It was just sniper rifle, go bang, and then machine gun, go brrr, whereas these guns have a lot more nuance in their operation and in their stats.
The pistol goes pow, 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 pow.
Yeah, like even the UI changes based on what gun you're using.
Yep.
Because
the reticle.
You can change it with the flick of a switch, and it tells you without aiming down sights exactly which mode you're in, so you can get prepared. It lets you know what your ammo counter looks like. Also, it regenerates ammo automatically, which, because it's a stupid sci-fi gun, of course it should. Scavenging for ammo in this game would be nuts. I would hate it so much. You get the different types of service weapons at different intervals of the game. I think they're all paced out pretty well. I like using most of them. I always keep the handgun version active because it's pretty universal. I usually alternate between the machine gun and the shotgun version. The sniper rifle one kind of comes in handy, but I don't use it often enough, except for other snipers. And the upgrade / like progression system is primarily focused on changing stats for the different types of weapons. Some of the mods that you get are specific to each weapon, like a choke for the shotgun version where it pulls in your accuracy, or a higher rate of fire for the machine gun, stuff like that. Most of those were fine. I have mixed feelings on the progression system in general. It kind of feels unnecessary, but it's not so large that it feels egregious. A lot of the upgrade materials to make mods are just collectible item number 375. It's this type of material. There's no real coherency as to why you need what material for this new mod or weapon version.
But to be fair, the gun is made out of Legos. So
It is. It seems a little silly when it's like I don't even remember the types of materials. It's like the little mini hobbits and then dead baby spirits. Like there's no logic to where you'll find them or in what amounts. It's just kind of there from completing missions, side missions, or opening up collectible boxes. So it's fine.
How did your brain go from hobbits to dead baby spirits?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay.
So the gunplay is very good. It feels pointed. It's snappy enough that it doesn't drag down gameplay, but it's not so weightless that it feels like I'm just running through areas gunning people immediately. Even with a lot of stat increases and on weak enemies, it's still a level of challenge. You can still die from being stupid. Your additional powers that you get are based on your somehow immunity to the building's reality warping bullshit. I still haven't gotten to the answers on that one. So you get upgrades like evading, which is just a force dodge. Honestly, the Jedi comparisons for this game are strong. A lot of your powers just feel like being a Jedi, whereas like you can grab objects and throw them. I'm pretty sure it's the same button as Fallen Order as well. It's just a coincidence, but it does, like most of your powers in this game make you feel like a Jedi. Just saying. You can levitate at a certain point in the game to get over objects, stuff like that, which are all fine. A lot of them are also OP as hell. Like grabbing and throwing objects is ridiculously overpowered, especially if you put any additional stats into it or modifications. You can just sit in a room and throw shit at people and then everyone's dead. So you kind of have to mentally go, I should use a gun because it's fun, which I think is definitely a major gameplay overstep. Evade also takes away from your basically force energy, which I don't like. I think evade should be a separate thing. If evade is supposed to kind of be coming in clutch at the end to make sure you dodge a rocket or whatever, I don't think that should be on a meter that's already been expended by you using your weird magic reality powers. So I didn't end up using evade very much after I got it, unless I had to for the sake of a level.
Unless you're not supposed to be spamming your force powers, and you leave some force for evade.
But the thing is, the game really likes flexing how fucked up the rooms are when you're done throwing shit. Like, that's the biggest part of the game is like, wow, look at all the damage you did.
Wow.
So it's kind of weird. Enemy types are fine. They're all serviceable. The hiss, the evil entity that makes people basically zombies, is fine. I wish there was more variety in the character designs. The gameplay is mostly serviceable. It does have too many types that are just guys with guns, which is annoying. They all kind of act the same. There's sniper rifle guys, there's handgun guys, there's machine gun guys, there's a guy with a minigun and a shield, and that's just kind of too much. The other enemy types I think are all pretty cool, whereas you'll get like hiss elevated, they're like floating upside down possessed demon people, and they'll explode if they get near you. Like stuff like that I think is really cool. There's, I don't remember what it's called, but there's a type where it goes invisible and then you have to use a shield. Like you have to pull rubble up as a shield to deflect it before you can start killing it because it's invincible when it's invisible. Like those sorts of things are really cool. They don't use them as much as I wish they did. Mini bosses kind of fall into the same category and regular bosses. Some of them are fine and serviceable. None of them are egregious or boring. They're just, some of them are kind of underwhelming. They can get a little bullet spongy because a lot of enemies past the midpoint of the game have shields that you have to drain before getting into their health bar, which is just stupid. Movement is fun. This game fixes my biggest complaint with Quantum Break, which was that the movement speed was tailored to what segment of the game you were in. You couldn't sprint all the time. The jump mechanic was busted. The climb mechanic was busted, and there was no crouch button. This game fixes all of that. It's fast. You can just sprint full force up flights and flights of stairs looking at her fat dumpy move, and man, does it just go. The truck does not stop moving. It just goes. And I love that. One, because it's fun to look at, and also just because the game doesn't try to extend the gameplay longer than it has to be. The world that it builds is big enough for the setting. It doesn't feel the need to artificially slow you down. It doesn't matter if it's a stealth section or a action scene, you can just bolt, just run, you can just dodge whenever you want, and I really like that. You can also jump and climb on things, which becomes pretty relevant for a lot of sections when the house is doing shenanigans and you have to go bounce around and jump over shit. I really appreciate the level design on the whole. I think it was the part of the game that's the strongest for the gameplay section. The levels all feel pretty well, not manicured, but curated, just based on enemy placement, collectibles, hallways, big rooms, battle areas, and so on. The levels all feel really well designed and intricate. They're spaced out well, and they're fun to navigate again for a second time. This is kind of just a Metroidvania. I just don't feel like addressing those elements very much because I don't care. You go back to areas constantly. There will sometimes be new enemies, sometimes there aren't. Sometimes you have to have new powers to get to a certain collectible or whatever. And I think
entire hidden boss fights.
There's a fair few of those, yeah. And I like that the game doesn't force you to interact with it if you don't want to. You can just kind of go through it. It also does make you backpedal just to go to different areas. You can use fast travel after you've cleansed a control point, which is effectively the game's checkpoint system. Those are well spaced out as well. So that cuts down on travel time a little bit, but I don't feel bored when I'm running through areas I've already been through before because there might be new enemies. There might be some new interactable shit, and it's just fun to be in. That's gameplay. Presentation. Certified banger. No notes. The biggest thing for me is the sound design and audio mixing. I play with headphones, and the game is spooky, and it doesn't need to be spooky, and there aren't even that many spooky enemies, and there are no jump scares. But the game really puts me on edge all the fucking time.
The hiss are unsettling.
They are. It's in the name. There's always a noise in the room. There's always a hissing or a murmur or a weird amount of people talking. And it's fucking spooky. I appreciate that it doesn't try to pull any fucking annoying jump scare bullshit. Even in cutscenes, which are few and far between, it just makes you go on edge. And I really like that. It blends well with the reality warping, weird stuff going on. It makes you feel uncomfortable, but it doesn't try to scare you. The mixing in and of itself is really good. I think there aren't quite enough audio tracks of the hiss and their noises because it definitely feels repetitive after a while. I had a few play sessions where I did put on some music because I knew I was going to be in a big gameplay section. But the guns and attacks all sound really good. They're distinct and cool sounds. They don't sound repetitive, even though I'm spamming throw rock 50,000 times in a room. It doesn't get old, which I really like. The hiss sound cool. When they die, they sound cool. They make weird death noises. The environment has a lot of noises to it. It echoes when you're in a big atrium. It sounds different when you're on rock versus when you're on marble versus when you're jumping on couches. Like, just general detail work is very high. The music is really, really good. I don't know who composed the score, but it's fucking great. Whether it's in cutscenes, the loading screens, or just general gameplay, the music is really good. The cutscenes, like I said, are few and far between, and I think it's the area where the game kind of has it's a bit lackluster. The cutscenes are primarily shot, reverse shot, medium conversations. It feels like a Ubisoft game. And as a former Ubisoft game fan, I don't hate it, but it could have been a lot more inventive. I give Quantum Break a lot of props for that. A lot of its cutscenes were wild. Even the dialogue scenes had a lot of unique camera angles and stuff going on. And I think Control really wants you to focus on the story and the characters, so I get why they didn't want to make it too flashy. The wall between cutscenes and in-game cutscenes versus pre-rendered cutscenes versus gameplay is thin, like most good games, honestly. The walls between the paper walls are very thin. You can see through them, but it's just kind of disappointing. When you're mostly doing a lot of exposition hunting, you're like, where's a person who can answer my fucking questions? And then you ask them 10 questions in a row, and you're just like sitting in a boardroom. It's fine because it does show off how really well detailed the character work is, even though there's a very small cast. A lot of them have extremely unique presentations. They have really well done voices. They have little quirks. Like the main character that you're going to interact with the most, the what's her name? Hope? One of the people that you interact with a lot to come back to for new missions and quests and whatnot, who's like trying to regain control of the building. She's really nervous, so she doesn't look at you in the eyes a lot. Like, she'll be explaining stuff to you with confidence because she's smart, but she kind of looks at the floor, or she'll look at the ceiling, or she'll look past you, and like stuff like that I think works really well in cutscenes. People fidgeting with things in their hands or being nervous. The vocal intonations are really strong, which is cool. Yeah, vibes are good. Like, wicked good. At very few times does it feel like my immersion is broken or like I get bored of being on edge. It does just enough to make me uncomfortable, but not to make me not want to play. I have put in about 12 hours, I would say, so far. According to the internet, the average completion time is between 14 to 20 for like story completion. There are 2 DLCs included in the Ultimate Edition, which I do own, which apparently add another like 2 hours or so. And I am going for like a 100% completion, so I'm expecting a total of probably 25 hours to be generous because I'm slow and stupid. I think that it fits well with the amount of effort it takes to complete. There's a good balance. It's curated, but there's plenty of it, and there's a lot of exploring to do, and there's a lot of big, heady brain things. Big game, but not too big. I bought it for $20 off of Amazon, I think, for the complete edition. I might have bought it at like Target or whatever. The fact that a couple of years after release, 4 years after release, it's on the $20 rack, I kind of think is a crime. I would pay full price for this. I've had zero tech issues at all. There are some bugs I notice here and there, but it's just some janky character model work. The actual hand animation work is really well done. There's no stuttering. I've had no pop-in. For a game that could get away with pop-in as like a troll or like the building's being derpy, I have no pop-in issues at all, which is really unexpected. No crashes, no stutters, nothing. Smooth, flawless, beautiful, like her skin. I would recommend. My gripes are fairly minimal in the grand scheme of things. They just are currently agitating. So if Quantum Break was like a 7, I think was kind of where I ended up on it, this is like an 8.5 or a 9.
Nice.
Very strong upgrade. Still kind of has some of the same problems, which is weird. I'm going to be finishing this. I'm not done for this review, but I will be finishing it before I move on to play other things. Let's just say that. There's no cheesing this one. You know what there is cheesing of?
Our love and affection for Jetpack Comics and Games in downtown Rochester, New Hampshire.
Do they have cheese there?
No, but sometimes we definitely do cheese our love for it.
Interesting. They do have snacks, though.
They do.
They have drinks and snacks.
And like pokey and stuff. Or pot shit. Whatever that Japanese shit that Colin eats all the time.
Pocky? The little, the weird like candy pretzel chocolate stick things. Yeah, those are kind of tasty.
I swear he picks his nose with those and then eats it.
Oh, that's gross. He probably does. Over at Jetpack Comics and Games in downtown Rochester, New Hampshire, we are friends with them, and they have things you should purchase. If you like comics or games or board games or card games, dice games, comic books, Star Wars, Turtles.
They have a huge game selection right now.
They do.
It was surprising when I was in there yesterday and today.
Yep. Any sort of kind of nerdy hobby stuff you have, they'll probably have something for it. Go support them because they support us.
I bought a couple of cards today.
Nice.
Magic cards.
You're a nerd.
I walked in and Kyle's like, "You're here again?"
True.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. We were there yesterday.
Yes.
Jetpack Comics is hosting the annual Free Comic Book Day for Rochester, New Hampshire this year, like they have for probably forever. We are going to be there. By the time this episode is out, pretty sure it's literally tomorrow. By the time this episode is out, so probably before you've even listened to it, it's already over. But if you listen to this on the day that comes out, tomorrow we have a booth. We're going to have a bunch of stuff. Over at the Governor's Inn, down in downtown Rochester, New Hampshire, we'll have a booth with Colin. We're just doing all of our podcast stuff. Colin is selling some prints and stickers of his own personal artwork as well. So please show up and help us and give us money and say hi. It makes us feel better about ourselves. And a thank you to our patrons over at patreon.com/dimecomicbros network. Caitlin and Jeff Lawrence, they give us money. We love them very much because they buy our affection. If you would like to buy our affection and attention and undying gratitude and stuff, you can go to said Patreon. We have a bunch of different tiers with different cool rewards. You can get a bunch of different sticker designs, which are all done by Colin. There's some commissioned artwork done by Colin, some regular art prints that we give out, bookmarks, all sorts of crazy fun stuff.
I already did the Patreon bit. We don't have to do it again.
But I want to do it again.
Please go to Patreon.
Give us money. That's cool. Thank you. Next month we'll do more stuff and we'll be back. We'll be back like the Governator. Maybe. Or maybe we'll just kind of fall away into oblivion. Buttons. Say buttons.
Beans.
Wait.
If.
I saw this thing, and I think it's funny. I think you should look at the thing.
I don't want to look at your thing. Maybe we'll stream this month.
Oh, dear God.
Or maybe we just won't play any games. Nobody really knows.
You might find us on Chatterbait. We might be streaming there.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a porn site.
Okay.
I love ruining your mind. It's my favorite thing to do.